Hi, this is Stephen Rothberg. I am the founder of College Recruiter Job Search Site, and this is the 11th gathering of the Job Boards Connect Job Board Leaders Roundtable. Call it what you may, but just call me, I think is what the standard joke is. Um, we get together as leaders of different job boards, recruitment marketplaces about once a month. It's usually it's the second Thursday at 11 a.m. U.S. Central, depending upon the time of the year. That can be like 4 or 5 p.m. in the UK and EU, but daylight savings varies, different sides of the pond. So today, the topic that we are going to tackle is for how to basically add additional revenue streams, diversify from standard job board offerings like job postings, resume, or CV searching. But before we get underway, Louise, I would like to thank you and the other Louise Grant, for being such an important backer, sponsor of these. Maybe you can tell people like a little bit about Job Boards Connect, including the event you had, I guess it was about 3 weeks ago, and what's also coming up in the fall.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so Job Boards Connect, I think I know quite a few of you, and it's lovely to see you here. So very pleased to be working with you on these events. So we do in-person events twice a year in the UK, and our awards, we had one in May, we've got one in October, and we are well underway with prep for that. So at some point I'll put my LinkedIn in the chat, but really happy to connect with any of you. And we've also got a Slack community. So if any of you want to join the Slack community, which Stephen is on, please just let me know.
Yeah, the Slack group, it's free. Um and Louise, they should just reach out to you
Yeah, yeah,
if
just
somebody's
yeah,
on it.
yeah, yeah. Just
Um
put me a note in the chat or whatever. But yeah,
what's oh, okay. For those who might want to email you later if they see this like on YouTube or whatever, do you want to share your like LinkedIn or
yes.
well, you
So
can
well,
just how
I
should they
am
reach
the
you?
I am the only Louise Triance in the world. So if you search on LinkedIn or anywhere for Louise Triance, you will find me.
So does that mean that once they made you, they said they couldn't do any better, or did they say one is more than enough?
The latter.
Okay, cool. For everybody who's on the call, feel free at any point, drop your LinkedIn URLs into the chat group. It's a really fantastic way of connecting. Peter Weddle, I see you there. It was good to see you last week. Peter is the CEO of TA Tech. And he had a really great event, speaking of events, last week, basically near San Diego in this lovely city that I'd never been in called Oceanside, where I got to meet Mike Corso of Disabled Persons. So, Mike, hello to you as well. So, we're going to kick off the conversation, and thank you. I see that the chat going great with everybody's LinkedIn URLs. This is fantastic. Um, Job boards, recruitment marketplaces, call them what you may, historically, revenues come from employers for the vast majority of our sites. There are definitely some exceptions to that. Like the ladders is probably one that was sort of one of the first big one where its revenues actually came more from the candidates. Um, but there are a lot of different ways for job boards, recruitment marketplaces to generate revenue, other than through the sale of postings and resume searching. Um, Anybody want to like kind of kick us off with something that you've tried, it worked, you're doing it now, you're exploring it now for ways of driving additional revenues, new revenue paths?
I'll volunteer to kick off.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
I'm sure I've talked about it before, but we have launched, well, last year, a year ago, um, employer branding options. Um, my feeling, and again, everything I say is probably to do with my sector, which is healthcare and social care. The clear vibe I'm getting is that clients like it. They like it as a sort of extra service. They won't pay for it uniquely. They like it to be built in, but it's not something that they will actually pay for. So I'm interested to hear from others if they have had a different experience.
So Matt, you've tried to do like an upsell, like you're
Mm.
paying X for posting, CV searching, whatever,
Yeah,
and would you be willing to pay more
yeah,
for the branding? And the attitude is like no. Um,
yes. Um, we all get measured by the amount really of applications. Actually, I'm getting measured by the placements. That's what I'm getting measured by. We don't charge in that way, but that's how we're measured. So it's like, I guess to paraphrase their feeling is, great, lovely idea, Matt, go for it. But ultimately, we are still going to be measured by how many decent applications, or even actually, they come back to me and said, they'll say, we have made X number of placements in the last 6 months or a year. The ROI equals this. Therefore, we will or we will not renew.
So,
that's largely our experience too. Louise, I think you were just about to chime in. I cut you off. Sorry.
no, it's fine. I was going to say, so did you introduce something that you wanted to charge for and that you've now had to add on for free?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once that genie is out the bottle, you can't put it back. So they like the idea. So you can't kind of then say to them, oh, well, you've got to pay extra for that. Um, they want it, but they won't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, do you think it helps make the sale easier or
Mhm.
that it helps with
Yes,
retention
yes,
of clients?
both. Yeah, it does help.
Okay.
Certainly. Yeah.
Okay. So good idea, but not a direct path to additional revenue.
Yes. Yeah. I
Okay.
seem to have had a lot of those in my business career.
If I had a nickel for it. Okay.
Exactly.
Is it anybody find something different? Maybe we can start with like the employer branding, like building profile pages for employers, charging more to have logos, videos, writing blog articles, to kind of personalize or humanize the experience. Anybody doing anything like that that they're having success with?
I tried what Matt said, and the upsell just doesn't work. You either have to have it in your package, or they're not going to buy extra. I even tried. I was working for. I tried it for about a month, using recruiters. Saying, "Hey, we can connect you with a recruiter to find you the person." Blah blah blah, and that didn't work either because nobody bought the upsell. So I just
I,
stopped it because it wasn't worth it.
I'm just going to add, sort of as a positive caveat, no, just a positive retort to this, that I have, outside of those that are actually recruiting, I have sold blogs and promotional targeted mail shots. So, for instance, the British Columbia Healthcare Authority wanted to attract UK nurses to go and work in BC. Um, so they paid me to run a blog. The blog was actually a Q&A, which I ran. I recorded a Q&A and we published that as a video on our site and we promoted that to our mailing list. So that was paid for. They weren't actually listing jobs. So I think that's like we haven't had many of those. We have had a few, but they have all been customers that actually aren't already posting jobs. It's outside of the job posting itself. So in terms of upselling existing job posting clients, it hasn't seemed to have created more revenue. Like you say, it is a feel good factor. It helps the retention. It's a good selling point. But yeah, you get my point here.
Interesting. And for those who can't see the chat, like if they're watching on YouTube, it doesn't show up. But so Simon Wingate posted basically, I think it's a question to Matt. Is this where the conversation moves from quantity to quality of application? If you're being measured on hires, someone doing the employer branding piece, well, should attract better candidates, meaning monetization comes via higher retention rates
Yeah, yeah,
rather than direct revenue from that product. I think that's a great point.
it's a really good point. And yes is the answer. So to give you a really good example, Signet, so they're a mental health service provider here in the UK. They're a customer of ours, posting jobs, lovely company. And we
Well, they're they're
published,
they're giving you money, so of course they're
they're
a
all,
lovely
anybody
company.
that pays me is a lovely
They're
company.
Right, right, yeah.
yeah,
So we published a lot of
they're
information
here in the
about them.
US too.
We
Cigna
put,
Healthcare. Yeah.
so we published a lot of information about them, their facilities, their hospitals, and those pages actually rank really well on Google for searches like mental health nurse jobs in location. We actually rank number one for a lot of those. So that's like kudos. It looks good when I'm pitching, and actually, to Simon's point, yes, that will drive really nice, in high intentioned quality candidates.
Yeah, and it does seem to me that that's where the market is going, is that more and more of our customers are going to be measuring, first of all, that they're going to be measuring, right? A few years ago, a lot of them just weren't. It was post and pray, and
The good
they
old
didn't,
years.
yeah, they didn't, well, I guess it's good if you're not confident that you're driving good results for that
Yeah.
employer. It's bad if you're confident that you're driving good results for that employer. But, overall, it's yeah, it's easier. Um, but I do think that more employers are tracking where the application's coming from, what's the effective cost for those applications, and that soon we're going to start to be held accountable. And I'm thankful for that, for quality, right? Did that application actually turn into an interview, maybe even a hire slash placement? And so the quality of our traffic, I think, is about to become a lot more important than it was years ago. I think we're kind of in a transition point right now. Um, Matt, your comment about writing blog articles, it kind of
Can
causes
I,
me to think of sites like the Muse,
hey,
which,
Steve,
which
can I go back to that quality question, by the way?
sure,
Yeah.
yeah. Hey, Jason.
How are you? Hey
Good.
guys, Jason Gorham with Talent XI. Um, is anybody doing an interstitial page, or is anybody adding information for fraud? So fake profiles, having people complete either a puzzle or similar to a Cloudflare before you send them to employers?
And Jason, are you asking if we're charging employers for that?
No, I'm just asking if anybody's adding that security
Oh,
measure
let's
now.
let's hold that for another discussion.
Okay,
Because today we wanted to like focus on additional revenue streams.
got it.
Um, so the blog article piece, sites like the Muse have made their living basically on writing content, taking videos of the workplace, really giving people a feel for what it's like to work there. Um, at times at College Recruiter, we've tried to do some of that as an upsell. And my experience, Matt, is pretty much the same as yours. It's surprisingly difficult to get employers to say yes to that. You have to start jumping, especially with a larger organization. You have to need like 18 different sign-offs on it. And inevitably somebody's just like not going to sign off on it. Even if you don't get a no, really hard to get a yes. And I've noted that sites like the Muse that have been primarily about employment branding are creeping more and more into the recruitment advertising space, right? They're adding job postings, they're adding CV searching, that type of stuff. So I think that they're struggling, not just the Muse, but sites like that
Mm.
is what I'm talking about in general. Um, Maybe people can talk if anybody's tried what we call a golden apple, that if you buy the largest some large package, if we go to an employer with a good, better, best kind of proposal, the best might include something that they cannot buy on its own. So if you buy this big posting package, if you buy an all you can eat or unlimited job posting package, if you sign up for a year, something big that the employer might have to stretch to say yes to, that there's this big incentive that they get. And that might be branding, that might be a webcast, it might be something else. Has anybody tried that, like a golden apple that's something that the employer gets that they can't buy on its own.
That's basically what I pivoted to.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And did that has that worked? Not maybe all
Yes,
the time, but it's enough that it's worth the
yes.
pitch.
I think, like you pointed out earlier, does it help you win business? And I think it does because it shows that you are proactive and interested and passionate about what you do. Because it's not easy, actually, to create content. Like you say, I have to handhold them through the process, and I might need to talk to the marketing team as well as the recruitment team to get it done. They have to approve stuff. It has to look right. So it is a lot of work. Um, and like I was talking about that example with Signet, it also has the benefit of generating more applications as well. So it's in my interest actually to have that content.
Yeah. So even though that's not a product, right, in and of itself, it is a way of generating additional revenue. You're going to take that employer that might spend, say,
Yeah, I'd go with that. Yeah,
£5,000 with
yeah.
you and make it a heck of a lot easier for them to spend 7,500. Or rather than signing up for 3 months, they sign up for 12 months. Something along
I'd
those lines.
I'd broadly agree with that. Yeah.
Okay. And we need the names and contact information for each of the clients that said yes to that. But we won't share it publicly. Um, another revenue stream that I've seen a lot of job boards do with success. For us at College Recruiter, I think our audience we skew a lot younger. We skew heavily to early careers. These are people who are very unlikely to be able or willing to spend money, the candidates themselves. But I've seen a lot of sites that attract people that are further in their careers that are in higher paying jobs where they'll do things like resume or CV writing and charge you an additional fee for that. And they might partner with RightC or they might partner with um, Talent or one of those organizations. Is any Bold, I think, is another one that does a lot of that work. Has anybody had success doing that? Because I know I've talked to a number of job boards that's a very significant secondary revenue stream.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I get approached probably once a week from a lot of these partners, and sometimes the deal is it will completely have College Recruiters branding, which would be the same for anybody else. And sometimes it's we've partnered with XYZ or Z organization to provide that service. And the candidates might spend $50, 100, 200, whatever the local currency is. And then there's a revenue share on that. So definitely something to try out. For those, I think especially if you've got candidates who are higher income earners, if they can see that by getting help with career coaching, career mapping, writing their resumes or CVs, that they can get a job, say, 2 weeks earlier than without it, it's well worth it to them. Um, but when you've got somebody who's sort of living paycheck to paycheck, that's a big sell. That's a big struggle. Um, is anybody on the call from one of those organizations that provides those services or that partners with job boards?
Hey, Steven, I just posted. Yeah, we totally do.
Awesome.
Um,
Awesome.
and like we find people totally buy. So our price point is like lower, right? So from college students through actually like one fun thing is older people, like our highest converting, it's like lowest volume, but people over 65 according to my Google Analytics, totally buy. College students buy. It's a really easy way to monetize your resources tab. So like, you have your job flow, the clicks, don't interrupt that, but then people go and read the blogs and we signed up like a partnership just this week with a job board. They're going to add like a little banner in their resources link to make some money off that. Because people go there and like that traffic doesn't do anything for your board, but here like a percentage will convert and might make money, and it doesn't. It's adjacent incremental to all the clicks and job applications that happen. So I would say, I'm biased, but totally.
Well, Anton, I appreciate you don't want to sell from the podium. Thank you. What organization do you work with?
It's
Because now that I've asked you, you can now say that, right?
Okay. Yeah, it's an interview smile. We mostly focus on AI interviewing, like voice stuff, but we also have a really robust AI resume writing. And it's all like, yeah, it's like you can check it out. I don't want to, oversell it, but it's the price point's lower, so I think for it's a lot more accessible to folks. And we'll be working with my perfect recruiter, for example, and a couple other folks, to resell our thing. So check it out.
Awesome. And so is there for the sort of the job boards that are thinking of potentially partnering with Interview Smile or one of your competitors, um, are is there kind of like a sweet spot? I mean, obviously any candidate can use your service, right? As well as your competitors, but is there a certain profile? Like you said, like older, younger? That actually surprised me. That's very counterintuitive, but you know it better than I do.
Totally, totally. I remember that was really counterintuitive. There's a big job board in Japan. There were a lot of older folks, and I mean, they struggle to engage. And how do you prepare these folks for interviews? And because if they do well in interviews, they get hired. That's everyone wins. But that was a surprising fact. Is yeah, the older, the higher converting. Kind of what happens is people that are like rusty, like they haven't been start job searching in a long time. They just don't know the process. They want some peace of mind or kids or young adults just out of college and they lose that career center resource who like backs them. So it's like getting their second job. So it's either like you've been out of the workforce for a while, haven't job searched for a while, or you just graduated college and you're on to your second job. Like that's in some ways, I think people who really want resume help and or interview help.
Cool. And what I've seen, and I think I shared it a couple of minutes ago with a lot of these products, is that it seems to me that they are typically between like 50 and $200. Probably about the same in pounds or euros or whatever other. Is that kind of the normal range?
So we experiment. We go way lower because I want to make accessible to everyone. We're either 10 or $20 a month. And I think like you really got to lower the price to make this accessible. I think, so I was in the founding team of talent, right? So $200 is a very typical rate there. You're really getting like 1%, like a tiny percentage of your audience is going to buy that.
Okay.
It's so expensive, but if you want to broaden your appeal, you got to go lower price point. That's what we do.
Okay. So the conversion rate more than makes up for the lower price point. And then the job typical deal, again, not just with Interview Smile, but others percentage, like 50-50, 60-40, something like that.
Oh,
Cool. Has anybody, whether it's Interview Smile or one of the competitors, has anybody like we did, given it a shot? Good, bad? Yeah, Louise.
Obviously, I haven't given it a go. I don't have a job board, but I do have an opinion on this, which is I've been in the space a long time, and I think that it's not just job boards; it's recruitment agencies as well who
Ah,
struggle sometimes with add-on services that come from a third party, and the perception of the amount of work they'll have to put in, which often is very little, to make it work, and the return they will get and the investment in understanding what the job seeker experience is going to be like and whether it's aligned with their own brand. And at the end of the day, often it's not our core business, it's just not worth it, rather than let's give it a go and see how it works. And that has overarchingly been my experience of businesses like Anton's Interview Smile, which is probably amazing, but people are like, meh, for another $200 a month or 2000, whatever it is, it's just not our core business.
yeah, and it's a good point. I think it's important. When we tried one of these services, and it's been years, um, positioning it was really important, right? You want to position it in a way that's not going to detract from your primary business, right? You don't want candidates clicking off to get career coaching, resume, CV help, etc., and kill your job posting business if your job postings are part. So you definitely have to be careful about kind of balancing it. The other extreme is to hide that third party service so deep that nobody ever sees it. Well, that doesn't help any. Then why partner? So there's definitely balance. I think just like experimentation, and if you're working with, say, Anton's team, or somebody else's, I'm sure that they have like more than enough examples of like this has worked really well, right? This was too aggressive. This wasn't aggressive enough. And give it some tries. Where I remember years ago with I think it was with Talent Worldwide where we did this. We positioned it where the candidate was applying to the job. And there was like a checkbox. Yes, I'd be interested in getting help. So it did not detract. We could just sort of see from the number of candidates who were going through that path. It really did not detract at all from the number who were applying. Um, and then we had it set up so that if they checked the box for more information, that we had an autoresponder that would email them right afterward, and it'd have, like five, six, seven paragraphs, with an affiliate link in there. So that resume helping that they got would not have helped for the first application because it was sort of positioned essentially after that, but it did help with the second, third, fourth, fifth, whether those were on our site or afterward. Um, what we found was the the number of candidates who signed up for that, it just wasn't worth the time or the effort. But I think a lot of that had to do with the placement, quite frankly. Like it was so late in the process that I think we were positioning it in the wrong spot. Yeah, Simon.
Sorry, yeah, just to jump on that,
Yeah.
I think you've hit on one of the key components here. It's about where it appears. From my experience, having investigated similar things in the past, I think that piece around where it fits in the user journey, I think, is really important because you have to obviously consider the balance between driving the right number of applications or satisfying the end customer, i.e., the paying customer, the employer or the recruitment agency, and satisfying the fact that candidates want a frictionless journey and so on. So it's really important to test that. I think Louise's point is spot on around understanding or trusting that that service is in there. Does it create more admin? Does it create more work? But I think ultimately where I've seen it work well or not so well is in large part based on how good the integration is, how seamless the user experience is, and does it detract from the core reason that that candidate is there?
Yeah. And so test, 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 balance, balance, balance. Right? And what like Simon, what might work really well for a site that you're running might work really poorly for mine, right? Just different audiences, different page design, even.
Yeah.
Patrick, can I call you out on this? Because like you work with an organization, drop the name if you want, um, that is there. It's not we're like resume CV writing, but it's in another space that's somewhat tangential or adjacent to that and like upskilling. Maybe you can talk about that as a potential additional revenue stream for job boards too.
Yeah, definitely. Some really interesting thing. For the people that don't know me, I know a handful of people are in this call. I do a bunch of different stuff in the industry, from programmatic to learning and development courses, etc. And as part of my role, I talk a lot with job boards in general, where I really notice a strong trend towards creating a career hub for job seekers. So this could indeed be the job interview, CV writing. A company that I work with, Learnisa, they provide courses for job seekers, and there are platforms out there that were really successful with it, so to say. Um, Dev is also on the call, as the CEO of Learnisa. Maybe you quickly want to explain what Learnisa does.
Yeah, Thanks, Patrick. I'll try not to try and take Anton's approach and be a little bit more subtle here, but I think before we
Balance, 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 right?
exactly, and I think from our perspective with the job boards, they're missing an opportunity of engagement um, with their candidates. The window of opportunity beyond them actively looking for jobs, because there seems to be a strong appetite for courses amongst job seekers. If you look at Simon's work at Reed, for example, and a clear benefit for of job seekers taking courses and then reaping benefits too. I mean, Coursera has been publishing research on the benefits for people who've taken their courses in their career, whether it's landing a job that bit faster or whether it's landing that promotion that bit sooner as well. Um, I think being very balanced here, my piece of advice for job boards, whether you're looking to expand and bring in any kind of courses, feature as a value proposition, it has to make sense. One, in terms of the engagement, because you don't want a tool that's going to impose or infringe and deter from the core proposition of your site, which is a job board. Absolutely. That then times in and falls in place with the user experience. But then two as well, you have to look at the value it would bring in terms of commercials. Can this tool make me money and more and different ways than I'm currently making money right now? And then, of course, the bigger picture as well is data. How can I use these different tools, whether it's Anton's tool or our tool, or other different forms of tools, to build up a better data picture of and visibility of our candidates? To then really knuckle down, okay, across different aspects of my business, what else could I be doing? Um, just to quickly introduce what we do, we've got a plug-in and play tool that job boards can embed within their platforms, and it just enables their candidates to discover and enroll in over 100,000 courses like that.
Awesome. And so Devin and Patrick work with Learnice, as you may have heard, and I've looked at their solution. It's really interesting. Um, what I've seen with theirs and as well as some others is one way of implementing it. And Devin, Patrick, definitely let me know if it's like, okay, Stephen, yes, that makes sense. But actually what we found is this other way is a lot more makes a lot more sense. Cool. The But what I've seen with a lot of them on job boards is the candidate will come and they'll run a search. And it might be, engineering in Paris, whatever the search might be. You get a list of jobs that come back on your search engine results page. 10, 20 matches, whatever, however your site might be designed. And alongside that, there will be relevant course offerings. Some of those might be from a university. Some of those might be like a 3 hour upskilling, learn how to use Excel, or whatever the course might be. I've also seen it placed on what we call the job detail page, where the candidate clicks to read the full job description before they click the apply. And there I've seen it implemented, again, adjacent. It might be alongside, it might be on the bottom. Um, and so it definitely adds content to the site, essentially taking the space that you might otherwise devote to display ads, like from like Google's ads, ad network or whatever. Um, but I feel like that ability for a candidate to tune out the noise if they're not interested is very high. Like if they're looking at the job and they're not interested in taking a course, when I've seen these implemented, it's not disruptive. It's just easy to sort of ignore it. On the other hand, if I'm a if I have 5 years of experience in customer service, and I'm looking for a sales position, it would be good to get some kind of certification or upskilling to convince that next employer that in fact I do have those skills. I'm not just good at sort of taking and handling problems from or issues related to existing clients, but I also have the skill set where I'm a hunter and I can go find new ones, for example. Um, so um, that's another really good revenue stream. Has anybody tried, like, offering courses, doing lead generation for schools or certification programs?
We actually have a training program where we have like 150 people in it, and there's a fee, an annual fee, and it does help. I mean, it's definitely a monetization
And Mike,
situation.
do you deliver that in-house? Do you partner with another organization for the training?
We partner with Skillsoft Precipio.
Oh,
And yeah, we have their whole iteration, and individuals can come in and they can go from nothing to full stack programmer or cybersecurity. They prepare for the industry specific certifications.
interest. And do you put that, do you promote that like adjacent to the job search results and job detail page? Like
Mhm.
when a candidate goes to like one of your websites, and I know you have several job boards, but when they go to one of your job boards, how do they find out about that?
Yeah, so we don't promote it that way. We actually promote it to the state rehabilitation agencies, and we
Ah,
get referrals from there. It's just like a whole side business. Um, because it's for people with disabilities, so we want to qualify them, and I don't want to have to deal with qualifying somebody coming off the web. So
so you get, so although your focus on your sites are to assist people with disabilities in finding employment, what I'm hearing is you get people without disabilities
no,
using your sites,
everybody with
or I'm trying to figure
disability.
out like why have you tried to put it on your site, or did you find out that you were getting a bunch of signups from people without disabilities, therefore not qualified? Like,
Well, they're qualified as a person with a disability. So
okay,
if I had to qualify somebody for the school for general population with a disability, I have to take their personal information, PII, and then that's a
ah,
whole nother situation. So we just offer it to the states. They love it because it's relatively cheap comparatively, and we help train people in our community to get them marketable.
interesting. So it kind of sounds to me like it's more of like an adjacent business
It's an
than
adjacent
than a
business.
product like an
Right,
upsell or
right,
okay.
right. But
In
I wanted to ask too, has anybody thought of job fairs, virtual job fairs as a revenue stream? And if they have, like, because I've thought about it, it seems to put it out there would be really monumental. Um, just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah. Anybody had experience with offering like a virtual job fair, career fair? Okay. I definitely know, Mike, that there have been a lot of job boards that have done that, and a lot of the virtual career fairs that have added on job boards, and definitely very tangential. Um, a guy that I know pretty well, Joe Stubblebine, who's the chief revenue officer, I think is his job title of Lensa,
Right,
Hungarian owned but U.S. Job board.
right.
That's the world that he came out of. He
Okay,
had like a career fair business, sold it to what was then Beyond, now is Next.
okay,
Um, and we've tried to partner with some of the virtual career fairs, and the problem that we continually ran into was our employers, kind of like with the discussion earlier, the employers that were buying, say, postings from us were evaluating us primarily based upon the number of applications or the effective cost per application. And with the career fairs, the measurement is much more, I don't know, vague. Um, how many candidates did you talk to? And
right.
can we measure that? And then they'd be like, well, but very few of them applied. So it was, to us, it was surprisingly different as a business in terms of like how we measured the success and how we
Right.
communicated that to employers. Um, it was hard. Like we've struggled over the years of reselling somebody else's product. If it doesn't have like our brand on it and doesn't fit really well into our offerings, if it's something very tangential, it's hard. So like when
Yeah.
we look at some of these offerings where we partner, we found that it really needs to have our brand.
Yeah.
It can be co-branded, it can be powered by kind of
Right.
thing. But if it's like we recommend you use this other company, we just find almost nobody does.
Right. Right. And then you
Uh,
lose your autonomy.
yeah. Um, there was a
I
discussion a minute ago about data, and I can't remember if it was Anton or Patrick, but somebody mentioned sort of the value of getting that additional data, and that caused me to think too about how some job boards are selling their data, the jobs that are posted, the candidates that are using them, the response rates. So I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and also here is a company called LinkUp. LinkUp had a sister company job board called Get Work that I think it was about 3 years ago now. They sold Get Work to Adzuna. Um, and but the people at LinkUp, the way that they make their business is by looking at employers that are advertising job openings and then selling that market intelligence to Goldman Sachs, M&A advisory firms, economists, etc. Um, has anybody been approached or thought about selling that kind of data? Who's posting with you? Salaries, the response rate, any of that kind of stuff.
can offer some perspective here.
Awesome. Hey, Patrick.
Hey, sorry, I'm a little bit late to the party here,
We'll
but good to see
forgive you.
everybody. We either do all of these things or we have customers on our job boards who do all of these things. So, you name it and we see it. There was just a comment around hosting or sponsoring job fairs. We have a customer on one of our job boards who has a podcast, a very large brand in an up and coming technology niche. They run around to job fairs in person. They have a huge following now, and they are able to sell employer branding packages. They're able to sponsor job fairs, and they're doing quite well. They're generating a lot of attention. They're just starting to monetize now. They just turned on monetization maybe 6 months ago. It's going really well. They do it on the back of one is a smaller niche in technology that's fairly overlooked. And they have a podcast, so they have a lot of attention and a lot of viewership. They're very, yeah, they generate a lot of attention. The founder is sort of front and center of the brand. We have another influencer who uses one of our job board products, who also has a lot of attention, and he sells consulting packages. So it's not the $10 or $20 a month package. It's $200 to $300 typically. They have a small ad unit on the side of their job board, and I think. Last time he told me it was a few upsells a week. So it's not an enormous amount of money. This is a side project for him, and it's not where he sends most of his traffic, but that works too. And then on the point of data, we have seen a lot. We do this ourselves, so we provide job data at very large scale in a clever way, and we have a lot of attention from sales intelligence organizations like sales sequencing companies, like technology companies. We have just started moving into recruiting agencies as well, so staffing agencies who are puzzled as to where to direct their sales teams. But what I will tell you is that these products look very different from what you'd expect. It's not just raw data. It is we're selling insights. So I think all of it can work. I think everything is fair game from the discussion that we've had so far.
Interesting. I want to focus, if I can, Patrick, on the data piece of it, because when you say that you're not just selling the raw data, that you're selling the insights,
Yep.
is it that your team is kind of evaluating it, analyzing it, and then going to the client and saying like, this is what we're seeing, instead of just
Yes.
like X number of jobs from this company, but it's more like where you're sort of presenting it in more of a narrative fashion so that we're seeing significant growth in, I don't know, agentic AI development in New York, but not in San Francisco. Whatever that breakdown might be.
Yeah, this is a good question. The short answer is this is a new product for us, so
Okay.
we actually haven't announced this yet. And we're
We'll
working.
again, this is all just secrets just between us. So it's just the
Well,
two of us talking here.
there's a handful of companies that very large staffing agencies that we're working with to build the product with them right now. So it is not something that we would be able to offer at a small price point in a self-serve way yet. So your question is a great one. It's one that we're still thinking about how to scale the distribution of the product and make it easier for everybody to use. Right now, it is a mix of data, trends, and insights. I'm a data scientist at heart, so
Okay.
it's a mix of all of those things, and I don't have a packaged way of showing it to everybody yet because it's a bit of narrative, it's a bit of raw data, but most importantly, it's the trend between the two. It's the glue between the two.
Interesting. So for those for those who are kind of like this is a new thing to them, the way that this has been explained to me is that job related data is really valuable to a lot of these organizations because it can be a leading indicator of where these employers are going. Right? Like you can imagine that if an employer is anticipating major layoffs, you're going to see the number of postings on the ATS job ads they're running is going to be dropping ahead of that announcement. Um, and the same thing, if they've just landed a major new client or they're expecting to like be building out a new division or a new product, they need to staff up. And so you can see a significant increase. Um, I've also heard it talked about in terms of like reallocation, where you'll see a reduction in force in one area and an increase in another. And if you're a Goldman Sachs and you're looking at potentially investing into that company or even into that sector, you can imagine how that sort of non-public information would be of value to them. Yeah, Simon.
Yeah, sorry, just to build on that one. Yeah, there are I think there are opportunities for sure within this space. Financial institutions, news outlets, lots of businesses like those will obviously be very keen to understand what is going on in the macro and micro economy. So I think they at the level that information is publicly available, then yeah, there's definitely organisations out there that will look to understand how many jobs were posted in the market, which sectors are up, which sectors are down. As you say, they can be leading indicators of what is going on. So some of those sorts of institutions are often quite keen to see that data because it can be an indication of either what's not just what's happened, what comes next. So yeah, there's definitely a revenue opportunity provided you have the critical mass of data, critical mass of job content that you can analyze and share the details of, then there could be opportunities there for businesses with a certain level of scale for sure.
And and Patrick, you mentioned the like recruitment agencies, staffing agencies buying this. That's interesting too, right? Because if if they don't know like what sorts of organizations they're to direct their business development to be calling, this is good data, right? So they can figure out with this data, this company is actually trying to hire a lot. We should be calling on them.
Yeah, exactly. The agencies that we partner with initially are large agencies, $200-300 million a year plus revenue. So big agencies. And what they have is they have, hundreds or in some cases thousands of contracts with the Fortune, 100, in some cases, different locations. And that's the hard part. And they've had these contracts for 20 years and they're asking, okay, we have a limited sales team, we have really thin margins. What's the best use of our resources? And there's a whole bunch of techniques that are possible now. We see it in the job board world with data structuring. You now have structured compensation, location data, et cetera, because you run every job post through a large language model and you ask, structure these 5 data points that we care about. Well, it turns out that there's actually a significantly more relevant and interesting set of information contained in job posts that is not just compensation information.
Hmm.
And that type of information has never been structured before because it's all been natural language. So, for example, what team are you being hired on if you join through this job post? Well, we now know the composition of every team within a company if we analyze all their job posts because the team name is in the job post, stuff like that. There's a handful of other signals like that as well that are relevant for sales organizations.
Interesting. Um, yeah, so we've got about 7 minutes left or so. And another area that I thought would be helpful to hit would be display ads. Years ago, I mean, our site, we were very early into the job board space. We kind of went into it more or less accidentally, in the mid 90s. Um, Early on, we made way more money selling display ads than we did job postings. But those were also in the days where like we were getting paid $200-300 per thousand on the CPM. So it didn't take very many visitors for you to actually be generating some meaningful money. It's a lot harder to do. Um, Reason I want to talk about this is Chris Russell, by chance, are you on the call? Okay, so Chris, I don't think that Chris was with us today, but so Chris Russell is the owner of a company called RecTech Media. It's a job board consulting business, and he posted on, so I think it was on Facebook, might have been LinkedIn, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, that he has a client. I think the client was in Israel looking to buy a job board in the US. The job board, the ideal job board would have revenues in the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, if is my recollection. But they wanted a job board that made most of its money through Google AdSense, by by serving ads, display ads, and I was surprised by that, but I think the play there was that the acquirer probably felt like it could drive a lot of candidate traffic really cheaply, and that they could monetize that by people viewing or clicking on the ads. Um, we stopped showing display ads on our site years ago because we just felt like the real estate, the clutter on the pages was not worth the money that we were getting from Google, etc. Um, Anybody finding the opposite, where actually display ads are generating a meaningful amount of revenue?
Not on any of our job boards that we power right now. No.
Uh, I have seen it generate significant income before, but I guess it comes down to a few factors. One is, as you just pointed out, whether you can get the CPMs that you were just talking about a minute ago, Stephen. Maybe not these days, but
Yeah.
I think certainly, if you have a volume of traffic that you can monetize, if you're clever around placements, um, there are, as in not just where it's placed on the site, but the type of assets that you're able to monetize on site. There's good opportunities there. I think where one of the display or the big conversations around display can be, does it or does it not detract candidates? You've got one school of thought that says people are just blind to them anyway, and they just accept that they're there and don't worry about it. Or you have more of a purist design view, which says actually you want the interface to be as clean as you possibly can be with minimal clutter. So I'm not going to say which camp I'm in, but they're the two schools of thought. But yeah, it can certainly be done, but it also then comes down to the partners which you use, whether it's remnant inventory or whether it's recruitment based inventory. So there's loads of different facets to understanding how you can generate the most income, but it can be done. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely seems to me like you've got to have a lot of traffic for getting a payment of $12.47 a month is not going to move the needle for anybody. But if it's a smaller job board and you can add a couple of zeros to that and not detract from your core mission, all of a sudden you can hire a part-time assistant with that kind of money, or do whatever. Um, the last item that I had, um, in terms of things that we've tried at College Recruiter, is almost coming back full circle, to the discussion we had at the very beginning, Matt, with sort of trying different things like branding and whatever. Um, For a while, we tried an upsell where employers would pay more to have their logo in their job ad, or a video in their job ad. Um, we ended up just saying, pardon my French, screw it. We're just going to give it away for free. We could see that they were better for the candidate. We could see that they were better for the click-through rates, the conversion rates, like the click-to-apply rates. Um, and the amount of time that it took us to explain it to an employer and the percentage of them that ended up saying yes, it just wasn't worth the sales time. But it was worth the time to make those employers happier. Anybody upselling on sort of those branding elements, logos, videos, that even I've seen some job boards where the job detail page will have the employer's brand, colors, and all of that. Anybody having good, bad, ugly with that?
I mean, I would just say I would probably agree with your point that ultimately for us it would be something that we would package in, bundle in to an existing package.
Yeah. So if they buy more than a certain number of postings, for
Something
example,
like that, or
or a
the
certain
length, the duration
value,
that
or
they're paying for, yeah, something like that.
yeah, yeah. We went so far as we felt like it was so costly for us in terms of staff time to be asking for that, that we ended up just partnering with a service where now basically we get every logo in the world for free. Well, we pay the service, but it doesn't take us any staff time. And so we just automate it now. If we can identify a posting comes from XYZ company, we just automatically check to see if we have that logo and we put their logo into their postings. So it's not at all a revenue generator for us directly, but it does lead to more clicks. It does lead to more applications. And so we generate more revenue that way. Um, so yeah, Matt, take us
Well, I
home,
was
baby.
just,
Take us
I
home.
know, well, yeah, we're about to end. So this is a
Yeah.
discussion point for another one. We haven't
Yeah.
talked about social media, and
Mm.
there's, with Jobico Air, I know you're here, Thibaut.
Yeah.
There is an opportunity for job boards to upsell social media promotion of clients' ads, but it's expensive. So for us, it would require that client spending more money in order to do that. But they could do it via our platform. And so maybe we should build this into a more another chat where we talk about social media generally, because I think is an audience out there for us, maybe in the care sector, a younger audience that are much more likely to use social media than get on Google and use a job board. So how do we reach that audience? Should we expect our customers to pay extra to reach that audience, or should that also be built into our costs?
Yeah, awesome. Um, I think that's great. So for those who don't know this, the whole idea for these roundtables came from Matt, the evil scientist, and I think that's a great idea. So second week in July, second Thursday in July, same time, I'll send out an invite. Let's talk about social media, and we can start off by talking about, is LinkedIn a social media site? That'll be fun. Um, Definitely, anybody wants to reach me, feel free to reach out. Stephen Rothberg with College Recruiter. You can hit me up on LinkedIn, shoot me an email, stephen@collegerecruiter.com. It's been a pleasure all,
Thanks,
and
Stephen.
welcome to summer for those in the Northern Hemisphere.